Okay, so here's 9-year-old Gianna, new to the game, and this was her lesson yesterday, just this yesterday, Saturday. So here's some things that you can take away from, hopefully, that you can benefit from during her putting lesson. So we're going to start with a putt that's about 10 feet long. For a putt that's 10 feet long, you want the ball to go, even if you miss the putt, you want to make sure that you hit it with enough force that it would go between 11 and 11 and a half feet. So you always want the ball to go about a foot, foot and a half past the hole. So that's why we're going to start with a 10-foot putt. So that lets us know one of the things we're going to do is we put this right behind, this is kind of a small little stake. We put it in the ground about 8 inches, 8 or 9 inches behind her putter head, her putter face, and that lets us know the first thing is that we got to keep it short of this metal piece into the ground, and that lets us know the distance of the backstroke. So number one, and the backstroke for a 10-foot putt should be about no more than about 7 inches, and then as you accelerate through the putt, that should get the ball to go about 11 feet. So for a 10-foot putt, your backstroke should be about 7 inches. So here is her, after all the work that we put in, here is her final putting technique, and you're going to see her head stay down, and then now that's her new technique. But this is where we started from. Okay, so if we take a look at Gianna, we're going to take a look, and we're going to draw some things from the game's greatest players and the best putters. So here's what we take away from Jack Nicklaus. One of the game's best putters, and we can see he has basically the same technique when he was 23 as when he was 46 when he won his last Masters. We see he bends over a lot from the waist. See how the top part of his spine is parallel to the ground. That lets his shoulders turn perpendicular to his spine, and that lets his shoulders turn perpendicular to the ground. And that allows his hands to go straight back and straight through, and the putter head path to go straight back and straight through. That's the main reason you want to be bending over a lot from the waist and get the top part of your spine parallel to the ground so your shoulders can turn perpendicular to your spine and perpendicular to the ground. That allows your hands and your putter head to go straight back and straight through. So we'll get Gianna, her chest more over the golf ball. And you can see Jack Nicklaus, he's got his eyes out past the golf ball. And that happens when you bend over so much from your waist, but that's okay. You actually, you want your eyes over the golf ball or barely out past the golf ball if you're bending over enough from the waist. So you can see that he had this technique both when he was 23 years old and when he was 46, when he won his last Masters. Here he is bending over a lot from the waist. You can see the top part of his spine is parallel to the ground, and that allows his shoulders to turn perpendicular to the top part of his spine. His hands go straight back, straight through, and that allows his putter to go straight back, straight through, giving the golfer a lot more consistency. So you can see here, Nelly Corda, top part of her spine, she's bent over from the waist. Top part of her spine is getting close to being parallel to the ground, and that allows her shoulders to turn perpendicular to her spine. Same thing here. So you can see these golfers, you can see some consistency. Also, you're going to see the body doesn't move. We've got the most of the weight on the left foot, we don't have any weight shift. The head stays down, and all the way until the ball goes in the hole. So let's take a look at Jordan Spieth. There's some things here that we can learn from Jordan Spieth. Perfect. You're going to see these hips don't move. Most of the weight is on the left foot, so we got about 60 to 70% of the weight on the left foot with that left hip bump to the left. The eyes don't look up after that ball's gone, so after you stroke through, keep looking down where the ball was for about at least 2 seconds. Also, last thing is you don't see any wrist hinge, no hinge in the wrist. The wrist stay perfectly still on the way through. So the first thing we get with Gianna, now the feet are a little bit too far apart. So we're going to have the feet no more than, say, 10 inches. Usually I always say 12 inches in between the insides of your two ankles, but Gianna's 9, so we might have to bring it in a little bit to about 10. But the first one is watch her left hip. So we're going to correct her first. We have the left hip she's kind of swaying back and then swaying through. So we're going to try to get that hip movement out of her putting style. So what we do is we lean a club up against her left hip, this is kind of a great drill. You get that left hip bump forward. So you can see she's got most of her weight on her left foot now. You get that left hip bump forward, so about 60%, at least 60% of the weight is on your left foot. And you lean this club up against your left hip, because if you turn your hips or you move your hips back and forth, then this club should fall off your left hip. Well, it doesn't always work because of the fabric and there's some friction here, but the idea is to keep your left hip perfectly still. So now we're going to try to keep her hip perfectly still. There's still a little bit of hip movement here, but not a whole lot. So let's take a look. We're going to see her hips now are stay perfectly still. Good. Her hips are staying perfectly still. Now the next thing is to keep her hips still, but then also she has some wrist hinge here. So we're going to keep these hips. We're going to get this alignment stick on here. Alignment stick taped on to the bottom of the shaft of any club is a great, it helps so many things. Putting, chipping, pitching, even full swings. But watch, we're going to get her wrists out of here. But here her left hip kind of goes back and forth. We have a little bit of hip movement here. So although we've taken her hands out of the putting stroke, so now her hands are solid, we have a little bit of hip movement here, and also the eyes are looking up. So here we're going to now get her hips staying still, and her wrists are going to stay very still through the stroke like they do for here with Jordan Spieth as he comes through. We're going to try to keep those hips perfectly still and that left hip perfectly still. So she still has a little bit of hip movement. So we're going to now put everything together for the best stroke of the day. Here's also a great drill. If you want to kind of get this club on the left hip, and if you can, parents, take a hat here, hold your hat here. We're going to try to block the junior golfer's view of the hole so they don't look up at the hole. They keep their head right down as that ball's gone, because when you start looking at the hole, it opens up your shoulders, and that affects the path of your hands and affects the path of the putter head. So what we do is here we get the left hip bump to the left. I'm gonna hold. You can use a golf towel. You can hold a golf towel here to block their view of the hole. I'm gonna use my hands here and block her view of the hole so she doesn't look up. So watch how her head stays perfectly still. This is going to be about the best stroke of the day. She's going to keep her head down. That's it. And then a little bit of hip movement, but great job of keeping her head down and not looking up at the hole. So we're going to take her as she looks. We're going to back out of here. And remember, any putt you hit doesn't matter. If you miss the putt, you want to have enough force, enough pace on this ball to go no more than between a foot to a foot and a half past the hole. You never want to die the ball into the hole, because if you die the ball into the hole, then the imperfections in the ground can affect it too much. You want to make sure it has enough pace to at least go between a foot and a half past the hole. And I've also got a little marker here to gauge about a foot to a foot and a half. This is about maybe 16 inches past the hole. So that lets us know that we got to get it past the hole, but not past this marker here. But still, she's new to, we're kind of working things out here. We've got a little bit of weight shift, but watch. Best stroke of the day right here. And her head stays still. She keeps looking down, holds her finish. And then after the ball's gone for about 2 seconds, then she looks up. Great work and huge improvement just in one day.